Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. Bob Pompeani here at 412-575-2600. We are on tonight, KDKA Plus. Andrew Filipponi is up at 93.7 The Fan. And you can hit us up on Twitter. It's at KDPomp or at The Pony Express after the Steelers come away with a loss, their first of the season. And while the slow starts continue to be a problem, and a big problem at that, I thought one of the takeaways that both Chris Hoke and I had was, Justin Fields, Andrew, how he played, how he got better as the game went on. Yes, he made mistakes, and yes, those are mistakes you cannot make. But his performance and the fact that he had to dig out from a hole that was that big on the road is pretty impressive to me, and it shows you that he's confident when he throws the ball down the field, which honestly should keep defenses honest.
Yeah, I hear you, Bob. I mean, I was there. So to see a guy throw for over 300 yards, account for 3 touchdowns, and also run for more than 50 yards, in the end, that's what you hope Justin Fields is as an NFL quarterback. If he does that every week, the Steelers are going to win a lot of games, okay? You score 24 points, the Steelers should win a lot of games. But it's hard for me to emphasize the positive when the game started like so many big game losses for the Steelers. And I think what we were hoping for at 3-0 with this team was that it was different from the last few Steelers teams. And when you have slow starts and crappy game management, Bob, then, frankly, it doesn't matter who your quarterback is. You're not going to win in January. That blueprint of fall way behind and then have to fight back, we've seen it over and over and over again. You've read the stat. What's the number 66-0 mean to you, Bob? Because no, seriously.
I know it
that
is.
is
it's
exactly
the last 5
what Sunday
games after the first quarter. They haven't scored and they've given up 66 points. And
didn't that game remind you of that?
Yeah.
You give them credit for fighting back, but when you dig a deep hole against good teams, you're not going to be able to get out of it.
No.
And the slow start was unacceptable, especially given the fact that Mike Tomlin was harping on it before the game on Sunday.
Right, and then he said afterwards, those slow starts don't define how a game goes. Yes, it does, and it's very significant because the last thing you want is to dig out, and they've never been really able to dig out of some of these big game holes like that. It's not just the playoff games over the last 5 opportunities. It's been a theme over the last several years. Slow first quarter starts, and whether that's offense or defense or both, and yesterday was more defense than anything else. Hard for me to imagine how that team came out and just dominated the first 2 drives. And then opposite of that is the Steeler offense, which should have taken advantage of a run defense that was absolutely ripped apart by teams like Green Bay. They really didn't have that much success. I think their first 7 carries produced 1 yard.
Yeah, Bob, that's why they didn't pick up the Naji Harris option. I hate to say it, the guy tries hard, but there's going to be 5 running backs picked after day 1 and day 2 of the NFL draft in April, and I bet you most of them play like Naji Harris. He's a pedestrian running back. He's durable. He doesn't fumble the ball a lot, and that's really all I can say about him. Because, Bob, the kick returner was better in their offense at the end of seriously.
I know.
So, if it's just a matter of the offensive line doesn't open holes, well then Cordero Patterson shouldn't be able to churn out yards behind it. Yet he looks fantastic, and Naji Harris is 1 or 2 yards. I was talking to somebody who knows football much better than me after that game, and his big complaint about Naji Harris, and more to the fact the way that they use Naji Harris is he's just perplexed by the amount of times they try to run outside with the guy. Mm-hmm. He does not understand that for the life of him why coordinators change, and yet why do we see so many runs off tackle into the outside with a plodding running back, Bob? He's not a speed guy. Makes no sense.
It doesn't. And, as far as Patterson, I thought he hit the hole hard, much like Jaylen Warren. And for whatever reason, Naji Harris hasn't been that quick to the hole. Now, on top of that comes news today that James Daniels is probably out for the rest of the season.
See what Mike says about that tomorrow, and that would be a huge lift because he is the Steelers' best offensive lineman. Hey, if it's Dan Moore, Sayamalu, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Broderick Jones left to right, you should be able to win with that line. Now, I think they're probably one more injury, Bob, away from being in big trouble. But McCormick, high-end talent, guy that played a ton in college. Frazier's played great, and we know that the potential is there with Broderick Jones. And believe it or not, Dan Moore has done a solid job through the first 4 games. So I still think you have the makings of a really good line, especially young guys getting better and getting more comfortable as the season goes on.
Yeah, my question, though, is the depth. I thought the depth was going to be something big for them. Here we are 4 games into it, and now the guys who counted on the depth pieces, are now starting. So, hey, before we go to break, I want to give a special shout-out, birthday wish to, I always talk about the first lady of this show, that's Diane Ireland. But her mother, Mickey, has turned, I forget the age, she looks like she's 29, but she's still going strong. She asked me to play golf the other day, and I said, sure, whenever we do it. So happy birthday, Mickey. We appreciate you watching the show, and the First Lady, Diane, will appreciate this. Gary.
Love Diane.
Yeah, and Gary, I know you're there, but, do what your mother-in-law says, and she'll be happy with that. So thank you, and happy birthday, Mickey. We'll take a break. We'll open up the phone lines at 412-575-2600. That's the number to call. We're live here with the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. GMC Sierra tweet of the night comes from Jim Milosh, who says, not many careers can compete with Pete Rose. 1975 World Series MVP, 73 National League MVP. How about 17 All-Stars, 3 World Series champs, a 3-time batting champion, all-time hits leader, Gold Glove, 42-56. It goes on. And tonight we learned that Pete Rose died at the age of 83. What a career. My only, thing I wish could have happened that he would have been in the Hall of Fame. I know what he did. I know the gambling charges and all that stuff. But to me, I've always been somebody who says, I want to judge you on what you did on the playing field. And if you're allowed to play on the playing field, this is how I feel about Barry Bonds too, Andrew. You should be looked at that way. You can make an asterisk about other things that happened if you want, but he deserves to be in there. And not only that, but Dikembe Mutombo also passed away today at the age of 58 with brain cancer. Hate to see those stories.
Yeah, Pete Rose had so many run-ins with the Pirates in the 70s, 72 NLCS, Bob, obviously did not go well for the Pirates in the end, was a heartbreak one. 75, and then later in his career with the Phillies, fighting it out with the Pirates in 79 and 80 when he jumped on that bandwagon and helped win a World Series there.
2-575-2600. Begin with our number one Cochrane Go One Better caller of the night, and I believe that's Bob in Monroeville, who is first up tonight. Hello, Bob.
Hello, Bob in Monroeville.
Hello, guys. Naji Harris is terrible. He runs like he's going through the Squirrel Hill Tunnel, stopping at the Churchill Bend.
Well, for terrible, come on now. He's had 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and you can belittle that all you want. He's a hard runner. He doesn't fumble. I thought he was the heart and soul. When they had a 1-2 punch last year of Jaylen Warren and Naji Harris, I think they were really good together. And maybe he's a better complementary back than he is a bell cow back. Maybe that's the case with him, Andrew.
I know, Bob, but, that yesterday was supposed to be the game of the year for him. Colts' run defense is terrible. No Jaylen Warren. Joe Mixon went for 150 against that defense. So did Josh Jacobs. DeForest Buckner's out. That's got Naji Harris written all over him for a big game, and instead it's 19 yards on 13 carries. I'm just completely befuddled by that stat line. He had to be much better yesterday, and he wasn't.
No, I agree with that, but to call him terrible over what he's been able to do here.
Well, Zaire Franklin called him soft.
Well,
how about that?
First of all, I think Zaire Franklin, I don't know what he did with his quote thing there on Twitter, but it was wrong. I don't think that, or you can tell me, you were there. What happened with that? That he tweeted something that Naji Harris did as he entered the field, but I didn't see any evidence that actually happened.
What, like Naji Harris calling him out or something?
No.
I don't know what the beef is.
Throwing the
but
finger,
he called him soft.
I don't know what it was.
Oh, is that what he said?
He said 84 runs harder, and yesterday that was the case. 84 did run harder. Let's go back to the lines. We got Michael in Beaver Falls. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Hey, good evening, Bobby and Andrew. How y'all doing tonight?
We're fine, thank you.
Hey.
Go ahead.
Excellent. Hey, guess what? Everything's okay. The Steelers are going to win the next one. I think the Cowboys will give them a good run for their money, but the Steelers have heart, and they have a lot of good players that are going to get better this weekend, and we are going to win. Plus, don't forget, guys, we got the 12th man.
Yeah, they do well. Thank you, Michael, on Sunday night, especially here in Pittsburgh, so they're going to be favored to win. Plus, you got DeMarcus Lawrence, who's going on IR, it looks like. Micah Parsons, who hasn't missed a game ever, is going to miss a game. Those are 2 big losses. However, Dak Prescott, C.D. Lamb, and who else is their second wide receiver? The guy who was in New Orleans before. Now
Brandon Cooks.
Brandon Cooks, who can cook as well. Those are guys who can do damage. Not to mention their tight end Ferguson, who's really good. They have weapons there. And given the fact what we saw last week, I wonder what the Steelers might do defensively, because I thought yesterday they missed an opportunity with Joe Flacco, who's a sitting duck, and they chose not to go after him. He's more effective if he sits in the pocket and slices and dices, and for some reason they didn't do enough of that.
And Mike Tomlin's, we can't blitz him. He's better against the blitz. Well, the one time you did give him a corner blitz, Beanie Bishop sacked him, so I didn't really understand that explanation from Tomlin at all. To Michael's point, he's talking about the 12th man. There's a lot of discussion about Cowboys fans invading Acrisure because it's a night game and Cowboys fans travel. So I will be interested in seeing what that stadium composition looks like from a fan ratio for Sunday night's game. I hope it's a lot of Steelers fans and they haven't sold out to Cowboys fans, because that would be a bad look.
I was going to say it takes two to tango. You got to get rid of the tickets first, and I'm sure you could command a lot of money. San Francisco had no problem doing that, it seemed, last year in the opener. I don't think that'll be the case this week, though. Do you?
Well, good. I hope you're right. And I hope not. I mean, I don't want it to be, because this is a big game, and the Steelers do need that home field advantage, and they should win. The Dallas right now, I know they went to New York and won on Thursday night, but this is a very average team with a very beatable defense and an offense that, much like the Steelers, typically takes a lot of time before it gets going in games. So, yeah, they should win. It's a small spread. I like the Steelers to get to 4-1, but I'm still going to have in the back of my mind the way they started that game against Indianapolis and just the self-inflicted wounds. The game management, Bob, what was that challenge of that Downs catch? Made no sense.
I don't know.
He didn't challenge the Naji Harris run. That was an obvious first down. And what was he doing with timeouts at the end of the game? He called the timeout with 6 minutes left that made no sense, and then he never used the last timeout. I'm at a loss trying to figure that out.
Well, especially because that was helter-skelter time. This was the last opportunity, and they had to, I thought, plan better. Also, Naji Harris, speaking of him again, he did not go out of bounds when he could have. There are a lot of things that happened at the very end there that should not have happened. But I think the biggest play of the game, if you're going to talk about mistakes, was George Pickens. You cannot at the 4-yard line give that ball away. That changes dynamic of the entire game.
I've never seen anything like it. Richie Walsh, who, by the way, the Colts had labeled as Rick Walsh, was sitting next to me in the press box. And Richie could correctly predict on almost every play. He had 11 in a row at one point, based on Pickens' body language in the huddle and then the way he lined up before the ball was snapped, if it was going to be a pass or a run. He could tell from the way he was engaged. It was crazy. Wow. And I just wonder if other teams can pick up on that, because it looks like he suffers from the AB disease of, if I'm not getting the ball and I know it, the effort's not there. And Richie had this pegged from up in the press box, Bob. It was unbelievable watching him do it. And if he can do it, I wonder if defensive coaches see the same thing.
I'm going to ask Rick if he can help me with tomorrow's lottery, too, if he knows in advance what's going on.
And, Bob, one more thing. We got to give credit to Mason Rudolph. He went in tonight.
Yes, he did.
The Titans scored 31 points. So the last 4 regular season games he's went into, his team is 4-0, and let me tell you something. Will Levis should not get that job back. I know he got hurt. Mason Rudolph should start the Titans next game on Sunday.
If you saw that game, too, Levis was really anxious to get back in there. He had his helmet on a few times, shaking off whatever injury he had, and then Mason goes in there and says, not so fast, and I'm glad that their coach decided to keep him in there, and now I think it's his job. I wouldn't go the other way. But actually, watching Tyler Huntley reminds me just how bad the quarterbacks are. That's why Mason Rudolph's in a good situation. And we talked about this, I think. That was the best situation for him if it wasn't going to be here. And I wish they would have signed him here, even as a backup, a third, whatever it would have been. And I don't know if he would have been receptive to it or not.
And will the Dolphins call the Steelers about Russell Wilson, Bob, after this game tonight? Who knows?
I wouldn't do it, though. I told you before, I don't want them to be thin, one injury away from having Kyle Allen and who else. I think it's too important a position, which is why it's so hard to find them out there, no matter who you are, and you lose your big guy, then all of a sudden things happen. They have a nice situation, 1-2 here for now. We got to go to a break. We'll come back with more, including maybe some baseball highlights from Andrew's team that he grew up watching, the Mets, and what a comeback it was. We'll talk about that and more as we continue right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Let's check out what's coming up tonight on KDK News at 11. Here's Josh with that. Josh?
Hey, Bob. Tonight, residents voiced their concerns about their apartment complex after it was charged with being a public nuisance. Plus, Mayor Ed Gainey proposes adding civilian employees to Pittsburgh's police bureau, and the search for a stolen dog from Westmoreland County continues. It's all ahead in just a few minutes. Plus, Bob will be there, too. See you at 11.
I'll see you, too. Nice tie and combination. I like it. Anyway.
Appreciate you.
All right, Josh, thanks very much. Andrew, your Mets did it today. Let's talk about that because now the wild card is set. The first game of the doubleheader, they played two, Mets and Atlanta, and each team had to win one, and they both get in. Arizona needed a doubleheader sweep by somebody, and they didn't get it. The first game, it was 3-0 Braves into the 8th inning. You thought it was secure, and all of a sudden the Mets come up with 6, including a Brandon Nimmo 2-run home run. Then the Braves come right back on an Ozzie Albies bases clearing double. They take a 7-6 lead, and then it's Francisco Lindor 2-run home run. They win. The Braves won the nightcap, so Arizona's out. Your thoughts?
Well, look out for the Mets now because these teams that get in at the very end of the season have done so well in the playoffs. Arizona last year is the 6th seed. San Diego the year before that, Bob. Don't sleep on these teams that barely make it to the playoffs.
Braves, though, got some bad news. Chris Sale won't pitch in this one. He was supposed to pitch the second game today. He has back
But they still got Charlie Morton. They still got Ground Chuck.
Citizen. Yes, they do. Okay. Pony, thanks very much. We'll do it again tomorrow night, and we'll talk to you then.
See you, Bob.
In the meantime, thank you for joining us tonight right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. We'll see you at 11 on KDKA.